Kylo Ren knew who was in the escape pod, even before it opened with a hiss of vapor. Her presence had been a steady pulse from the Force the moment his father's junk heap freighter once again somehow heaved itself out of hyperspace without disintegrating. The stormtroopers behind him stood ready. But he just smiled at the sight of Rey crammed into the pod's tight confines. His smile faded at the sight of his uncle's lightsaber.
"I'll take that,"
he said.
"It belongs to me."
Rey was tempted to tell him to come and get it, as Finn had, and to remind him that she'd driven him to his knees at Starkiller Base and disarmed him. That he would bear the mark of that duel forever, and lived only because she had chosen not to strike him down. But that wasn't why she had come, and they both knew it. Still, she held the lightsaber appraisingly for a moment, to remind Kylo that she was the one who had set this chain of events in motion. "Strange, then, that it called to me at the castle," Rey said, studying the ancient weapon almost idly before snapping her gaze back to Kylo. "And not to you." The corner of Kylo's mouth twitched in the beginning of a smile, and he inclined his head at the soldiers filling the hangar.
"You're in no position to dictate."
Rey held the hilt out to him, as if daring him to take it. The stormtrooper shifted uneasily. Kylo frowned, then reached out, his scarred face momentarily uncertain. The slightest tremor disturbed his black-gloved fingers as he reached out for the weapon, sitting motionless in Rey's steady hand. He snatched it away and gestured curtly for a First-Order officer to approach with binders. "That isn't necessary," Rey said.
"It is,"
Kylo said, hustling her into the depths of the massive flagship.
"We have an appointment."
Rey quickened her pace to match his long strides, not wanting to be seen scurrying to keep up. Behind them, the accompanying stormtroopers' armor rattled. Rey could feel their anxiety about a situation they couldn't fit into the lockstep of their training regimens. That anxiety was shot through with fear, not of her, but of the mercurial, unpredictable Kylo. She didn't blame them. Kylo's turmoil all but filled the Force around them, roiling and churning it. The troopers couldn't sense it the way she and Kylo could, but that wasn't the same as saying they couldn't sense it all. They were part of life and the Force, and couldn't help but be affected on some level. Kylo stopped at a lone turbolift ringed by stormtroopers and dismissed the guards. The doors shut and left Rey alone with him. He was still contemplating the lightsaber in his hands. She nodded upward. "Snoke?"
You don't have to do this.
"I do."
I feel the conflict in you.
"Growing since you killed Han," Rey said.
It's tearing you apart.
"Is that why you came? To tell me about my conflict?"
There they were again, his usual tactics, deflection and derision, as if he were the master and she was his student, to be kept at bay and off balance by questions. But things had changed. She wasn't the young woman he'd kidnapped on Takodana or confronted on Starkiller Base. Not anymore. "No," Rey said. "Look at me."
Ben.
He turned at the sound of the name he'd been born with, the one he'd abandoned. He looked lost.
When we touched hands, I saw your future.
She told him.
Just the shape of it, but solid and clear. You will not bow before Snoke. He'll turn. I'll help you. I saw it.
It's your destiny. She watched the emotions chase themselves across his face, echoed by jitters and spikes in the Force. Anger, confusion, pain, loneliness, longing, sorrow. Then he lifted his eyes to hers.
You're wrong,
Kylo said.
When we touched,
I saw something too.
not your future, your past.
Because of what I saw, I know when the moment comes, you'll be the one to turn. You'll stand with me. Right? I saw who your parents are.
Rey stared at him. But there was no lie in Kylo's eyes. And a terrifying realization bloomed in her mind. Kylo's churning emotions weren't just about himself. They were also about her. The turbolift doors opened with a hiss, and Kylo led Rey into the throne room, where the supreme leader of the First Order awaited them on his throne.